do I trust God in the dating process? Have I surrendered this area of my life to the Lord? And I will share with you the one question that I asked myself that really helped me to see the lack of faith and the lack of trust in God when it came to this particular area of my life. Hey there, I have a question for you. Do you trust God when it comes to dating? I'm asking you this question because whether or not you trust God will make a huge difference on how you experience the dating process. I'm talking about dating in a Christian context, right? I'm assuming that if you're a believer and you're watching this, that you are looking to meet someone and that you are hoping that the person that you're getting to know will be someone that you are able to marry, that you would like this relationship to move forward and get to the point of marriage, right? You're not just hooking up. You're not just trying to get to know someone for the sake of it, just to kill time, but you are actually serious in your pursuit of God's will for your life in the romantic area of your life. And so dating is just a process, right? We call it dating. Some people might call it courting. Whatever it is that you call the process of getting to know someone, my question for you is, do you trust the Lord? And the reason why this is such a critical question is because whether or not you trust God will determine your mindset in the dating process. And that mindset will dictate how you behave and how you feel and how you communicate and pretty much everything that you do as you date someone, as you get to know someone, right? And so I am talking from my own experience, and I realized how, because of my lack of trust in the Lord, I became desperate. There was a season of my life where I really wanted to be in a relationship and I wanted to get married. And for a short period, I was putting a lot of pressure and a lot of weight on myself because I wanted this thing so badly. And all of that really had me feeling desperate. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. Desperation, and how desperation is the worst thing when it comes to dating. One of the reasons why desperation is such a problem in dating is simply because it takes the fun and the joy out of the experience. This should be a season where you are excited to get to know someone who might possibly be the person that God has for you. And that should be a process that is invigorating and that is fun. And yet, because you are desperate, it sucks the fun out of it. Another problem with desperation in dating is that it actually clouds our judgment. Someone who perhaps you may have noticed there are some red flags, you might be tempted to ignore those red flags because you're feeling desperate. And then you end up spending way more time with someone than you really should have. And you end up wasting their time, and you end up wasting your own time, all because you were desperate and you ignored the signs that this person was not for you. The other issue with desperation in dating is the fact that it might actually turn off the person that could possibly be a good candidate, right? You know, people can smell desperation. It's amazing. And because really it comes across in everything that we do. When we are desperate, the way that we talk, the way that we come across, our motivation for doing things, everything is tinted because of the feeling of desperation. And the other person picks up on that. And oftentimes they are completely turned off by it. They are uncomfortable by it. And they might not call back. They might not reach out again because of the vibe that you're putting out there, because you're feeling desperate. Another issue, and it's actually probably even the most impactful problem with desperation in dating, is that it might have the opposite effect. Someone might actually be attracted to you because you're desperate, because of their own issues. You see, everyone experiences desperation in the dating process. I truly believe it's common. But the reason why someone is desperate in a particular season might be very different. Maybe you're feeling desperate right now because all of your friends are getting married, or they're all in very serious relationships and you're not, and you're feeling like you're left behind. Maybe you're feeling desperate right now because of your age and you would like to have children, and you think that unless you find someone ASAP, that might never happen for you. And the desire to have a child and to have a family in that way is putting a lot of pressure on you, and you are feeling desperate. Or maybe you are feeling desperate because the people around you are putting pressure on you. Maybe your parents or others in your life who are constantly, saying things or pointing out the fact that you are not in a relationship, and other people's attitudes about your singleness is impacting you, and it's making you come across as someone who's desperate. But unfortunately, those are not the only reasons why someone might be desperate, or why someone might be attracted to someone who's desperate. Someone might be attracted to a person who is desperate because of their own issues and significant issues, such as unresolved trauma or other things that would actually have a very negative impact in a long-term relationship. So again, a huge problem with desperation in dating is that you might actually attract someone with significant issues that have not been resolved, and that those issues will end up impacting your relationship down the road. So today, I just want to encourage you to really examine your heart and ask yourself, do I trust God in the dating process as I am trying to get to know someone or hoping to meet someone for me to get to know? Have I surrendered this area of my life to the Lord? And I will share with you the one question that I asked myself that really helped me to see the lack of faith and the lack of trust in God when it came to this particular area of my life. Because what's the opposite of desperation? You might say, well, the opposite of being desperate is to be confident, right? Someone who's not desperate and who's out there, who's getting to know someone and is not desperate, that person is confident. And I would say that that's right? That if someone is not desperate, they're coming across as someone who's confident. But then the question is, how do you move from desperation to confidence? How do you move from a place of anxiety and neediness to a place of confidence? Well, the key element is trust, is to trust in the Lord. Because when we trust in the Lord with this area of our life, we come to this place where we are firm. We are stable. We are emotionally, psychologically, our hearts are in a place where we are open to meeting someone and getting just to know someone that the Lord might lead us to marry. But we're not putting all of this pressure and all of this weight on this happening right now with this particular person. We're approaching dating from this place of curiosity, of, might this person be the one that the Lord has for me? Perhaps. Maybe yes, maybe no. And that shift in mindset really helps us move from a place of desperation to a place of confidence. So here's a question that I had to ask myself and kind of like wrestle with in order to really come to this place of confidence and trust in the Lord. I had to ask myself this question, and I'm going to ask you right now. How would you feel? How would you respond and react if you somehow, I don't know how, but if somehow you found out today that it is not God's will for you to be married? that somehow you were to learn that God's will for your life was to be single for the rest of your life, this question changes everything. Why? Because if you seriously stop to think about all of the feelings and the thoughts that this possibility stirs up in you, you might actually see that even though you thought you trusted God in this area of your life, you don't. Perhaps in your mind, there is no other option but to one day get married. Perhaps you think that a good God would never sentence me to a life of loneliness, to a life where I don't have a partner. Of course, God wouldn't do that because that would not be good. If that's part of your thinking, then automatically we see some issues here, right? Because you're basically trying to define what goodness looks like and what a good God would and would not do, instead of surrendering your life, including this area of dating and marriage, into his hands, knowing that God is good, that he loves you, and that he's trustworthy, right? So I just want you to stop and seriously think about this question and journal and maybe talk to somebody about it and really pay attention to the kind of emotions that this possibility brings up for you. Because I'll tell you that for me, that possibility brought a lot of pain because I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children. And I wanted to be in a relationship. And the thought of being by myself for the rest of my life was not something that I welcomed. I didn't want to think about that. And so I saw through that question and in really thinking about that question, how much weight and how much I was holding on to this idea of getting married. But see, this is the thing. I'm talking from experience because if anybody had any reason to be desperate, it was me. I grew up in a dysfunctional home. I grew up without my dad, and I didn't meet my father until I was in my 20s. I got married for the first time at the age of 21 while I was still in college. And by the time I was 24, I had my first daughter. At the age of 28, I lost my daughter and my parents in the most horrific way. And at the age of 29, my first marriage ended in divorce. After God had done so much in my life and had brought so much healing in my life, I realized that I really wanted to get married again and have a family. And in the beginning, I was desperate. I thought to myself, who would want to be in a relationship with me? Who would want to gamble, given my past, given my history, right? And what man of God would be interested in dealing with just the trauma and the difficulties that I had experienced that would definitely impact our relationship? And so yeah, in the beginning, I was desperate because I thought time was running out and the likelihood of finding someone who would want to deal with everything that I had experienced felt very, very small. But thankfully, by God's grace, because of all of the things that I had experienced before in my life, I was able to recognize that these feelings that dating was stirring up for me were not healthy. I was able to realize that there was work in my own heart that I needed to do in order for me to move forward in this area of my life from a place of trust and a place of confidence and a place of emotional health. And by God's grace, I did. I took the time to do that. I got the help that I needed and tapped into the resources that I needed to really work on myself and in my own heart and to really get to the root of all of these fears and all of the anxiety that I experienced as it related to dating and the potential of remarriage. And it was during that season that I asked myself this very hard question. What if God desired for me to be single? What if marriage was just not something that God wanted for me? And as I wrestled with this question, I really saw that I had not surrendered this area of my life to God. And so as I did the hard work of wrestling with these fears and turning to the Lord in prayer and confessing the idols of my heart and confessing that I just did not trust Him with this area of my life, God slowly started to change my heart. He slowly started to strengthen my faith. My relationship with God became more important than my relationship status. And that shift in my heart, in my mind, completely changed how I viewed the dating process. I was finally able to get to this place where I could honestly, with all honesty say, yes, I would love to get married. I would love to have children again. But if the Lord does not desire this for me, I trust that He knows what is best. I trust that He has the best intention for my life and that He would not withhold anything that is good from me because of His character, because of who He is, because of the love that I know that God has for me. And so again, if this is you, if this is an area that is just an area of soreness for you, where you're just not sure if you can trust God with this area of your life, I just want to encourage you, do the hard work of surrendering your dating, surrendering the idea of marriage to the Lord, and see how He transforms you from the inside out. Because you see, that shift in mindset removed all the desperation that I was experiencing. I was able to put myself out there in terms of getting to know someone without that weight, without the pressure that I had been putting on myself before. I was able to be confident, not faking it until I made it, but genuinely confident because I knew that my life was in God's hands. And if God desired for me to be married, He would bring that person to me. He would find a way for me to meet that person. And it was going to be in His timing. I surrendered all of it to the Lord, and it no longer mattered. As much as I wanted to have children biologically, I wanted to have children again. I surrendered that to the Lord, and I knew that whether I met my future spouse at the age of 32, or I met my future spouse at the age of 55, or I never had another spouse, I knew that God's plan for my life was good because God is good. So how did things turn out for me? Well, I met my husband at the age of 32. Less than a year later, we got engaged. And 6 months after that, we got married. 10 months after that, we had our first son. Today, we have 2 boys and a little girl. And I couldn't have asked for a better life. Honestly, when I thought about dating and when I thought about what marriage could look like, I did not envision this. I didn't have a category for this. Because again, because of my past, I didn't know that a relationship could be this healthy. I didn't know that a relationship could be this fulfilling. There are difficulties for sure, as in every marriage, there's work to be done. But the way that my husband compliments me and the way that he's able to care for me and the way that he's able to handle, right, my past with so much grace and so much love, I did not think it was possible. It's hard for me to even describe, right? All I know is that all of it has God's grace and God's provision and God's care stamped all over it. Praise be to God. He is awesome. as his word says, he always does so much more than what we can ask for, what we can imagine. And sometimes we forget that. God is not withholding anything good from you. He would never do that. If you can trust God with your salvation, you can trust him with your love life. You see, at the end of the day, what truly moves us from a place of desperation to this place of confidence is to remember that God has already given us the most important thing. The most important relationship in your life is not a spouse. The most important relationship in your life is your relationship with God. And God has already made a way for you to have a relationship with him. He sent his son. He sent his son to die for you. He sent his son to save you, to redeem you, and to meet your greatest need. He loves you. That's how much he loves you. You can trust him with your dating. You can trust him with your heart. So let this truth sink in. Let this realization of God's love for you sink in. Let it transform how you see yourself and how you see marriage. And allow that to shape how you date, how you get to know others. Allow that to motivate you to date in a way that is healthy and in a way that is honoring to God, because he has what is best for you. He is not going to deny what is good for you, and you can trust him with your dating life. And so that is my encouragement to you today. If any of this resonated with you, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And I did meet my husband online, and I hope to at some point share what that process was like and how much fun how much fun I had with that process. Again, because I did not have all of this pressure on me, and I was trusting in God with this area of my life. And so I hope this encourages you, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.